Hello, this video will be going over the four-leaf mill project. Be your first project that you're going to be doing for App 7. So let's begin. So you got a number of operations that you're going to be needing to do here. One of them, the first one's going to be you're going to need to face off the top. And then after that, the sequence doesn't really matter. But what you need to do is you obviously need to machine around the outside. You're going to be doing that with your 5/8 rougher and the 1/2" carbide for finishing. Then you have a series of holes that down here. I'm sorry, that's the slot. Series of holes are called out up here. 1/4-20 tap through, 8 holes equally spaced on that bolt hole pattern. For that, you're going to want to use the G70. You can go ahead and calculate it out if you want and call out each location. I got no problem with that. But that G70 will be much easier. So, and we have done that with your bolt hole pattern. That was a program that you just needed to write and that produced a part. So very similar to that. And then after that, what you have is what they call, or I call, the cloverleaf pattern. So like I said, the sequence doesn't really matter other than the fact that you do want to machine off the face first and establish your Z0 and go from there. So now as far as the machining concepts, the outside, you're going to want to do that in 2 steps, rough it out in 2 Z steps. Establish a good start point, and here in this part there's really no advantage to it, so whatever corner you want to start out in, you can machine around, but then wherever you end, you also want to make sure you ramp off and then do your G40. And then when you're doing your second pass, you need to wrap it back to your start point again. So that you can do that rough. The finish, you can do in 1 pass. Okay, because that you should only have 10 to 15 thousandths left on your surfaces, so it should be no problem to machine that off with your 1/2" carbide in 1 pass. So that would be the outside. Now for the 1/4-20 holes, we programmed these before. You're going to be using your can cycles to do that. One thing you want to keep in mind, remember one of the tools that we do have is a 3/8 90-degree spot drill. It's not quite 90 degrees the way I drew it, but you'll get the idea. Okay, so if that's 375, you should very easily be able to chamfer for a 1/4-20 tap. Okay, so what you keep in mind, I'm not going to do this calculation for you, but I'll kind of figure out or show you how to go about it. So if this hole here, if you say your tapped hole is at 250, you need to figure out what your diameter needs to be at the top of your chamfer. Maybe 280, maybe 0.3. Probably wouldn't go to 3 or 5/16, 3.125. That might be too big. So if you go around between 280 and 300, that should be good. And from there, you just have to calculate out basically that leg of your triangle. If you are assuming that this is 280 to 300. So, and keep in mind that it's a 45-degree triangle. So you should be able to figure it out from there. Okay, so that would take care of your holes. Now, the only thing then you would have left is that figure 8, or that 4-leaf clover, I'm sorry. So with the 4-leaf clover, I am not concerned about the diameter of that cutter or the width of that groove. As you can see down in my notes, I'm going to be giving you a 1/4 inch to a 5/16 end mill. More than likely be a 5/16 end mill. And I'm not concerned about the width of that slot. What we are doing here is we are programming just the center of that cutter. Okay? And this is just an exercise to get you used to doing G02s and G03s, going back and forth, working with your I's and your J's. So we're just looking at the center of the cutter and no cutter comp. So once you look at that profile, obviously if you're taking the width of the cutter, there is no climb mill or conventional milling. So the direction really doesn't matter. If you want to go this way, that's fine. If you want to go that way, that's also fine. So the direction does not matter in this case. What you do have to do is establish a start point. Your start point, you're going to want to have it on one of the tangent points. There's a number of them you can pick from, and there's not one that's better than the other. There's also 4 points on that inside circle that you could possibly start on. So you're just going to pick a point and then you're going to start. So first off, we're going to look at speeds and feeds. Okay, so now, not like your half-inch carbide where you're finishing, where your surface feet for a carbide is 250 to 700. We were finishing at the higher end, 600, 500 surface feet. We're not doing that. We are what they would consider roughing. So for this exercise, or for that, when you're doing that, you probably want to be between 250 and 300 surface feet per minute for this. So you're going to use that for your calculation on your RPMs. Same thing with your feed rate. Normally we've been using 2,000ths chip load. Now you want to use a 1,000ths chip load for your feed rate. So you're going to be, RPMs will be a little bit slower than normal for a 5/16 carbide, and so will your feed rate. So keep that in mind when you're calculating that out. Now one thing you're going to be using, the end mill you're going to be using is what they call a center cutting end mill. It can plunge down into your part, so no matter where you start, let's say we pick this point here as our start point. You can plunge down, but when you're plunging down, I'll say plunge in Z direction, you want to have a feed rate of 3 inches per minute. Okay? They don't like to cut down very fast. They are capable of doing it, but they don't. If you do it at a calculated feed rate, you'll end up chipping the carbide end mill, and it'll end up blowing up inside the part. So you want to be very careful when you feed down. You can do that Z feed rate. Now I'm not worried. Now when you plunge down at a start point and one point, what you're going to end up with is just a little bit of a dimple wherever you start. I'm not worried about that at this point. Like I said, this exercise is just an arc exercise with I's and J's, G02s and G03s. So don't be concerned if we end up with a little bit of a 2 mark on your start point. So once you establish your start point, you got your RPMs figured out, you're ready to go. So from here, it's just a simple arc to arc going on all the way through, G02s, G03s. Now we do have this center circle that you have to do at one point. If you happen to start here, you could do the circle right at the beginning or right at the end. If you start on one of these outside tangent points, the only thing you have to do is stop at one of these points anywhere on the circle, do your circle, and then continue on all the way throughout to your part. And that would complete your 4-leaf clover. Now we are going to finish out at 0.13, but you also want to do this in 2 Z steps. So after you complete one full rotation of the 4-leaf clover, you can just do a copy and paste, change your Z, and continue on with the second pass. So that pretty much concludes this part. If you have any questions, you can please come and see me. Otherwise, good luck, and we'll see you in class. Thank you.